الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره ونستعينه ونستهديه ونتوب إليه ونشكره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولا مثيل له ولا شبيه له ولا ضد له ولا ند له وأشهد أن نبينا وحبيبنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه وحبيبه من بعثه الله رحمة للعالمين هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده فجزاه الله عنا خير ما جزى نبيا من أنبيائه فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد عباد الله فإني أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله العلي العظيم القائل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بشر المنافقين بأن لهم عذابا أليما الذين يتخذون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين أيبتغون عندهم العزة فإن العزة لله جميعا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah An-Nisa chapter 4 verses 138 and 139 that glad tidings to the hypocrites, and Allah here is mocking the hypocrites, and the hypocrites he's talking about in these verses are the two types of the hypocrites in action. They are believers, but they are hypocrites in their actions, and the hypocrites who claim they are believers, but they are not. So Allah is saying, glad tidings to those hypocrites that they will be getting very severe punishment in the day of judgment. And He's telling us in the next ayah why. Because those who take the deniers of the truth, those who take the enemies of Allah. Now we all have non-Muslim friends. Are they all enemies of Allah? No. But here specifically he's talking about the enemies of Allah who are fighting Muslims, who are attacking Muslims, who are causing aggressions and killing and displacing and destroying masajid. And you have Muslims or so-called Muslims supporting them and aiding and abetting with them. Those are the type of hypocrites, the deniers of the truth Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. Those who take the deniers of the truth, the enemies of Allah, for their allies in preference to the believers. Do they hope to be honored by them when behold all honors belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gave glad tidings to Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam and to the Muslims in Surah Yunus chapter 10 verse 65 when he told him وَلَا يَحْزُنْكَ قَوْلُهُمْ إِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And be not grieved by the saying of those who deny the truth, whether those who deny the truth, Muslims or non-Muslims, because there are Muslims who deny the truth, right? Behold, all might and glory belong to Allah alone. He alone is all hearing and all knowing. So we're going to talk about some of the characteristics or the aspects of the glory and how some of the Muslims today, specifically governments, specifically Arab governments, how they aid and abet non-Muslims in their aggressions against Muslims and in killing Muslims. But first we want to bring examples of the glory through Islam. During the time of Al-Khalifa Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, when he sent the commander of the army, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, may Allah be pleased with him. As we know, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas is the maternal uncle of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, and one of the 10 promised heavens, and him and Talha ibn Ubaidillah are the ones who protected the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, the last two that protected the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam in the battle of Uhud, and he was the first Muslims to hit with the arrows or the bomb, where Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam said, "Irmi Sa'd fidaka abi wa ummi," like Sa'd, he was telling Sa'd, may Allah be pleased with him, to shoot the arrow that that he will sacrifice his father. Rasul is saying to Sa'ad that he will sacrifice his father and his mother for him. This is the importance and the status of Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas. May Allah be pleased with him. So Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, because the commander of the Persian army requested one of the messengers of Muslims to come. He wants to talk to them. So Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas went and sent Rabi' ibn Amir, may Allah be pleased with him, to meet Rustum, the leaders of the Persians, of the Persian army. So when he went and he saw that they have, carpets, very expensive, cushions laden with gold and had pearls and emeralds in it. He saw the golden bed of the king of Persia and other stuff that is decorated with the most expensive jewelry. And he did not care. Right? He did not care with all these materials. He goes in, he wants to go in with his weapon, with his sword and with his spear. So whoever was there from the Persian army told him, you can't go and meet the commanders with your weapons. He said, I wasn't the one who wanted to meet him. He's the one who requested us. If I don't go in the way I am, I'm going back. This is the glory we used to have. Unlike today, when you see regimes bowing down to the enemies on their own land and not allowing to aid other Muslims. But here, Rabbi ibn Amir is in their land, in the Persian land, and he's telling them, I am getting in the way I want to get in, and if you don't like it, I go back. This is the strength of his faith. They said, so Rustum told him, yeah, he can go in. So he went and started putting holes in these expensive carpets and cushions in their own areas, right? He didn't care. So Rustum asked him, what brings you here? Why you coming to fight us? So what did he say? This is where he gets his glory and where he gets his pride from. Allah ta'atana لنخرج من شاء من عبادة العباد إلى عبادة الله. That Allah sent us Muslim. He didn't say sent us Arabs, sent us Muslims to liberate people from worshipping the creation of Allah or another person to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only today we have the worship of the Sultan. They replaced it, and it's okay to them, to some people. وَمَنْ ضِيقِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَى سِعَةِ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. From the narrowness of this dunya, of this life, to the vastness of this life and the life hereafter. And here is the key. وَمِنْ جُورِ الْأَدْيَانِ إِلَى عَدْلِ الْإِسْلَامِ. From the tyranny of religions to the justice of Islam. So he did not make Islam as a religion. We made it only as a religion of ritual and worship. But Islam is a system of life. So he's telling Rustum, we came to liberate people, all people, from the tyranny of religions in general to the justice of Islam. So when you talk about Islam, you're talking about justice, right? But what's happening today to the Muslims? Where are their glory? Their glory, they see Muslims are being tortured in Eastern Turkmenistan, in Myanmar, in Syria, in India, in Kashmir, in Sudan, and the focal point of fight now against the Muslims is in Palestine, where they want to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? Where is the Muslims from caring about all these Muslim affairs? When Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam tells us in Sahih al-Bukhari wa Muslim, al-Muslim akhul Muslim la yadlumhu wa la yakhdhulhu, that the Muslim is the brother of other Muslims, he does not oppress him or her and does not let them down. And what have we done? Especially from the government levels. At our level, all what we can do is donations and make dua and do demonstrations and make people aware of other Muslims' problems. Some of the Muslims are slaves of the sultans. They advocate for the oppressors. We're talking about the majority. When Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam in another hadith say, مَا مِنْ إِمْرِئٍ يَخْذُلُ مُسْلِمًا في موطن ينتقص فيه من عرضه إلا خذله الله في موطن يحب فيه نصرته. That if there is any Muslim who let down and disappoints another Muslim in an area or in a location where that Muslim is having severe problems, where his honor is being tested, his land, the women, the mosque, everything is being tested, is being destroyed by the enemies of Allah. And if that Muslim disappoint and let down that other Muslim, Allah will not support that Muslim who let the other Muslim down when he needed help. This is a perfect example of what's going on in Palestine. When you have over 21,000, before I came today, 21,500 maybe, the dead, and the 7,000 are missing, they are dead. They can't find. But, so anyway, from the 21,000 known dead, 9,000 of them died because of lack of medications and hunger. When there is a Muslim land right next to them, seeing, and they claim they have sovereignty, seeing that their Muslim brothers are dying from injuries and hunger, and let them die, 9,000 of them. What they gonna say to Allah in the Day of Judgment, and is Allah going to give them any help when they need help later on? Allah will not give them that. Based on the hadith of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. And the opposite is true. وَمَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ يَنْصُرُ مُسْلِمًا فِي مَوْطِنٍ ينتقص فيه من عرضه وينتهك فيه من حرمته إلا نصره الله في موطن يحب فيه نصرته. So in another word, if a Muslim goes and help other Muslims in an area where that Muslim needs help because he's not able to do it on his own, and all what the Palestinian needed, they didn't need any armies, they didn't need any openings, all they needed is somebody to send medicine and food and water to the Palestinians. That's all the aid they asked for. And they still didn't do that. And the Rasul ﷺ in another hadith told us and taught us, مَنْ اغْتَبَطَ بِقَتْلِ مُؤْمِنٍ لَمْ يُقْبَلُ مِنْهُ صَرْفٌ وَلَا عَدْلٌ. Whoever feels happy, and not only happy, he gloats from another Muslim, another believer being killed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept from him any obligatory prayer and any nafil and any voluntary prayer. Will not accept anything from that person. It doesn't matter what he does. Right? And the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam taught us that some of the punishments of the grave is because Muslims do not support other Muslims, knowing that they are in need, knowing that they can help, but they refuse to help. Marartu ala madlumin falam tansuru. This is part of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam said that they will have the punishment of the grave. And in the Day of Judgment, those who disappoint the weak and oppressed will not drink from the pool of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, as in another hadith, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, هل سمعتم, and this is in Sunan al-Nasa'i بتخريج الإمام الألباني, may Allah have mercy on him. He said, هل سمعتم أنه ستكون بعدي أمراء من دخل عليهم فصدقهم بكذبهم وعانهم على ظلمهم فليس مني ولست منه وليس يرد على الحوض. So there will be leaders after me coming. Whoever goes to them and believes their lies and help them on their oppression against others, Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, they are not from me and I'm not from them. He disowned them, and they will not drink from the pool of my pool, of the pool of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam in the Day of Judgment. This is how severe is this punishment of not supporting other Muslims. Today you have some of the scholars of the sultans, I call them the slaves of the sultans, do not even allow to make dua for the people of Palestine. They put people in jail to make dua while in Mecca. This is how slaves they are to others, even though Islam came to free them from slavery. Right? But subhanAllah, some people decided that, and some other people decided they want to take to be impartial, to be neutral in the time when the falsehood is prevailing, and they are not able to see the difference between the truth and the falsehood. This is an act of cowardness. This is not being impartial. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran that the humiliation of any nation and its punishment is through them getting away from their religion, the true religion, not the fake Islam that the scholars of the sultans are teaching. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give glory to the obedient Muslim even if they are weak. Look at the freedom fighters in Palestine. They've been under siege for 17 years. They just reverse engineer everything. Their equipment is nothing with comparison to the enemies. And the enemies is not only one, the enemies is some of the permanent members of the United Nations and NATO, and they fighting them all, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though they are weak with limited resources, Allah is able to have them stand their ground and giving them victories. Aside from the crimes that's happening to the people, let's put that on the side. But Allah also, Rasulullah ﷺ, and Allah taught us in the Quran that Allah will humiliate the disobedient even if he was strong. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah told us, ضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ الذِّلَّةِ, and so disgrace and humiliation overshadowed these people who are the aggressors, and they earned the burden of Allah's condemnation in verse 61 in Surah Al-Baqarah. And in and the answer is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ. That's because in Surah Al-Ma'idah chapter 5 verse 78, that's because they rebelled against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and persisted in transgressing the bounds of what is right. So when the Muslims see what's going on in Palestine and forget about it, what's going on in Syria and forget about it, what's going on to the Muslims in India and forget about it, in Kashmir and forget about it, in Eastern Turkmenistan, in Sudan, forget about all, and Myanmar, all the Muslims who are suffering all across the world. And when they see Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam being insulted, when they see the Quran is being burned, and some Muslims come to me and talk about honor. What honor is left when you see all that happening around you, when you know the neo-Nazis, terrorist Zionists are about to destroy Masjid al-Aqsa, and you have Muslim government supporting it? When we talk about glory, example of glory, we talk about the glory that happened during the last decent sultan we had, Sultan Abdul Hamid, may Allah have mercy on his soul. When he found out there was a play happening in France, mocking Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam back then in Paris. When information came to him, he put the military outfit and ready to send the armies to France. So they called the French ambassador, and he lectured him, and the French ambassador realized that Sultan Abdul Hamid is serious. He's going to send the armies, right? They canceled the play. Is there any Muslim government, community, entity that can stop the burning of the Quran and the humiliation of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam? No. Why? Because they don't have any glory, they don't have any honor. When during Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab, the way he entered Jerusalem, as we all know, the way he entered Jerusalem, it was a long trip from Medina to Jerusalem, right? And he was exchanging with his servant, riding on the camel. By the time they reached Jerusalem, the one who was on the camel was his servant. And so the bishop of Jordan, there was no Jordan, the Palestine thought that the one on the camel is the Sultan or Khalifa. When they realized it's the Khalifa Umar, Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah, may Allah be pleased with him, told him, why are you looking like that? Why are you doing this? I don't wish that the people of this town to see you the way you in your condition. And the Bishop of Jerusalem at that time had like golds and emeralds and the big hat, and he had two people just to fan him, like, looking very glorious. So what did the Khalifa Umar tell Abu Ubaidah? Not our Abu Ubaidah, today's Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah we're talking about. So Umar said, "Oh Abu Ubaidah, if other person was to say this saying of yours, I would have made him an example for the Muslims." And that's when Khalifa Umar said his famous sentence or saying لقد كنا أذلاء فأعزنا الله بالإسلام فإذا ابتغينا العزة بغيره أذلنا الله. We were the lowest of all people, and here we is in reference to the Arabs. We were the lowest of all people, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us glory and pride through Islam. And if we seek pride in any other thing other than Islam, Allah will disgrace us. When you hear some of the videos coming from Palestine, from the freedom fighters over there, when you hear them while they're fighting, they are not saying the glory is to Palestine or Aviva Palestine. The demonstrators saying Aviva Palestine. The Palestinians, Mujahideen, freedom fighter, they go and say, Allahu Akbar al-Izzatu lillahi wa rasuluhu wal-Islam wal-Muslimin. They gave the credit, glory, and pride to Allah, His Messenger, Islam, and the Muslims, to all of us. Right? They are not fighting for the cause of nationalism. They are not fighting for the notion of secularism. They are fighting for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they clearly saying they are fighting for Masra Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, for where the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam was ascended from, for the Wasiyyat of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, for where Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam left us a well, and that well and that pride and that glory is Jerusalem. And what did we do with it? أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Ask Allah for forgiveness. He's the most forgiving, most merciful. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. From the teaching of the Quran, from the teaching of our successful predecessors, especially for us Arabs, that we need to learn that if it wasn't for Islam, the Arabs would have never had their glory through Islam. The Arabs would have never be anything to amount to if it wasn't for Islam. And if the Arabs try to be proud of and reach glory or success in anything other than Islam, only humiliation will be their reward. Nothing, no victory, no success will happen to them. They try to separate Islam from our lives. They try to fool us that we have Islam in the Muslim countries. There isn't, I don't know, the Muslim Council, is it 53 or 55 nations? They claim two of them have one Arab and one non-Arab, that they have Islamic regime. No Muslim nation has Islamic regime. They all secular, they all nationalistic. Islam hasn't been alive since 1924, right? And their means of asking for glory is through nationalism, and this is why, and secularism, and this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting His disgrace and His wrath and His anger on us. We made the same mistake the people of the book, especially the Jews, made. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them in Surah Al-Baqarah, أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ فَمَا جَزَاءُ مَنْ يَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ مِنْكُمْ إِلَّا خِزْيٌ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ يُرَدُّونَ إِلَى أَشَدِّ الْعَذَابِ وَمَا اللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. Do you believe part of the book of the Quran and do you reject the rest? I mean, in this was for the people, for the Israelites, was for the in the Torah, but it also applied to us, because some of the Muslims, they take some part of the Quran and forget about the other part. They take what serves their cause and they drop what does not serve their cause. So do you believe part of the book and do you reject the rest? But what is the reward for those among you who behave like this, but disgrace in this life, and the day of judgment they shall be considered? The most grievous penalty for Allah is not unmindful of what you do. Allah is aware of what you do. And because of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that whoever stays away, in Surah Al-Hajj tells us, whoever stays away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will humiliate him. وَمَنْ يُهِنِ اللَّهُ فَمَا لَهُ مِنْ مُكْرِمٍ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْعَلُ مَا يَشَاءُ. And whoever Allah humiliates, they will have no honor. If we're gonna seek honor through nationalism, through secularism, through I don't want to help this Muslim brother in Myanmar or in Syria or in Palestine or in Kashmir or in India because they are not my cause, they don't concern me. If that's the mentality we're gonna have with each other, this will apply, then Allah will impose this on us, He will disgrace us and we will have no honor. Allah told us and taught us in Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter 21 and 92, إِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُونَ. Over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala attached the monotheism of the Lordship with the unity of the Muslim nation. When He said, verily, this brotherhood of yours is a single brotherhood, and I am your Lord and cherisher. Therefore, serve me and no other. And I will end with a story from the Battle of Uhud, and we are discussing this battle and the wisdom of this battle every Sunday. You are after Fajr. You are welcome to join us after Fajr. When after this battle, during this battle, a lot of Muslims companions were martyred, and the Rasul ﷺ was injured, and the kuffar of Quraysh made a rumor that the Rasul died. Rasul ﷺ made a dua at that time, Allahumma la ya'luna alayna, Allahumma la quwwata lana illa bik. Oh Allah, do not have these kuffar the upper hand on us. And that Allah, we have nobody except, and no strength except with you. This is exactly what the Palestinians are saying today. They lost everything. Everything that you can think of materially, they lost. The only thing they have is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. An average Muslim cannot withstand what these Palestinian people are going through. And yet, all what they do is stand by Allah. The other day I saw a video that is going to give you goosebumps. He's in the hospital. He goes and makes 2 rakat. And it's not the time of prayers. And one guy asked him, why are you making 2 rakat? He said to thank Allah that He took my son as a martyr. This is the faith of these people. This is the level of faith of these people. And then right after this dua that the Rasul ﷺ did, an ayah from Surah Al-Imran, verse 139 said, وَلَا تَهْنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. And do not feel weak and inferior and not in grieving, and you shall have the upper hand if you are believers. This is something that we believe in. This is something the Palestinians believe in, that Allah will always be standing with them, inshallah, even with the suffering they are doing. I would like to remind myself, first and foremost, anew with the hadith of Rasul ﷺ, 2 words, very light on the tongue, very heavy on the scale of good deeds. Subhanallah, very beloved to Ar-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanallah bihamdih, Subhanallah al-Azim. You're giving glory and praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You should say it at least 100 times a day. And know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked us to send prayer on Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam when He told us, إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم ارفع البلاء عن أمة حبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين يا الله. اللهم انقذ المسجد الأقصى من كيد الكائدين ومكر الماكرين ورجس المحتلين وأعده إلى المسلمين طاهرا شامخا منتصرا. وأكرمنا بالصلاة في المسجد الأقصى محررا. واحفظ أهلنا في فلسطين وأيدهم بنصر من عندك يا رب العالمين. اللهم سخر لهم ملائكة السماء وجنود الأرض ومن عليها. وافتح لهم أبواب توفيقك واشرح صدرهم ويسر أمرهم وقوي عزيمتهم ومد صبرهم. اللهم أكرمهم واحفظهم واجعل لهم من كل ضيق مخرجا. اللهم انصرهم على اليهود الصهاينة المغضوب عليهم. اللهم افتح لهم فتحا قريبا. اللهم احفظ فلسطين وأهل فلسطين يا من لا تضيع عندك بدائع. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. العالمين وعقب